I'm sitting on concrete so cold it burns through my thin coat, and I'm staring at papers that say my own children legally disowned me. The social worker won't even look at me anymore. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Answorth," she said, sliding the documents across her metal desk. "Your children filed papers removing all financial and caregiving responsibility. There's nothing more we can do." Nothing more they can do. 67 years old, and I'm nobody's mother. The government office door slams behind me, and I'm clutching this plastic bag. Everything I own, everything left of Maribel Answorth fits in one grocery bag. My hands are shaking so hard I can barely grip it. Antonia's signature is still burned into my mind, right there on line 1. My eldest daughter, the one I worked 2 jobs for, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Jonah signed line 2. My son, my baby boy who I carried on my back to work when I couldn't afford a sitter. And Claudine, sweet Claudine, she signed last. The daughter I sang to sleep every single night after her father died. They didn't just abandon me, they made it legal. I can't go to their homes. I can't call them for help. In the eyes of the law, I don't exist to them. The wind cuts through my jacket and I realize this is it. This is how I die. Alone on concrete steps, disowned by the 3 people I gave my entire life to. But you know what the worst part is? The worst part isn't that they threw me away like garbage. The worst part isn't that I'm homeless at 67. The worst part is I still love them. I still hope they'll change their minds. Even now, sitting here with legal papers that say I'm nothing to them, I'm still their mother. And that's the cruelest joke of all. But that wasn't the worst part. Because what happened next, what happened when that stranger walked up to me, that changed everything. You want to know how I ended up on those steps? It started 3 months ago, when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I trusted them. See, after Harold died, that was 11 years ago now, I thought I was doing everything right. I worked at the diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then cleaned offices until midnight. Every penny went to those kids. Every single penny. Antonia needed college money. Jonas needed a car. Claudine needed dance lessons. I needed nothing. That was my mistake. I never asked for anything back. The house Harold left us, it was all we had. Small, cramped, but it was ours. Until Antonia convinced me to sign it over. "Mom, you're getting older," she said, holding my hand so gently. "What if something happens to you? What if you can't pay the taxes?" She had this folder. Legal papers, all typed up neat and professional. "Just put it in my name for safekeeping. I'll take care of everything." I should have read every line, but she was my daughter, my firstborn, the one who held my hand when Harold's casket went into the ground. So I signed. 3 weeks later, she called me. "Mom, I'm selling the house." Just like that. 43 years of memories gone. "You can rent a small apartment," she said. "Something more your size, more my size," like I was shrinking into nothing. That apartment, God, that place. Roaches in the walls, heat that barely worked, water stains on the ceiling that looked like faces, angry faces watching me every night. But I told myself it was temporary. I told myself my children loved me. I told myself they'd never let me suffer. Jonas came by sometimes. Always needed money. Just 20, Mom. Just 50, Mom. Just 100, Mom. I gave it to him. Even when it meant eating crackers for dinner. Even when it meant choosing between medicine and groceries. Claudine visited too, but only to blame me. You were never there, she'd say. Always working, always tired. I was working for you, I'd whisper back. No, you were working to avoid us. How do you argue with that? How do you explain that every split shift, every double shift, every night I fell asleep standing up was for them? But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. The thing that makes this whole nightmare even darker. I had another child once. Long before Antonia, Jonas, and Claudine. Long before Harold. I was 20 years old, broke, scared, alone, and I gave her away. My firstborn daughter. I signed papers then too. Different papers. Adoption papers. I told myself it was love, giving her a better life than I could provide. But what if it wasn't love? What if it was just giving up? What if I've been giving up my whole life? The social worker's words keep echoing. Your children filed papers. Maybe this is karma. Maybe this is what happens to mothers who sign their babies away. Maybe I deserve to die alone. But then again, what kind of children abandon their mother after she sacrificed everything? What kind of children make it legal? And why? Why do I keep hearing Harold's voice in my head saying, Maribel, there's something about that baby girl you gave up, something you need to know. He said that once right before he died, but he never got to finish the sentence. I should have seen the signs. The way Antonia's eyes went cold when she talked about money. The way Jonas only called when he needed something. The way Claudine looked at me like I'd ruined her life. I should have seen it coming. But that's the thing about love. It makes you blind to the truth. Even when the truth is staring you in the face. Even when the truth is written in legal documents. Even when the truth is, you raised 3 strangers who share your blood, but not your heart. But I still didn't know the worst part yet. Because sitting on those concrete steps, holding that plastic bag, I had no idea my real daughter was looking for me. The stranger appeared 3 hours later. I was still on those steps, nowhere else to go. My legs had gone numb from the cold concrete, but I couldn't feel anything anymore anyway. That's when I heard the footsteps. Expensive shoes. Click, click, click on the pavement. I looked up and saw a woman in a long black coat. Designer everything. Perfect hair. Diamonds on her fingers that probably cost more than I made in a year. She stopped right in front of me. Maribel Answorth? My heart stopped. Nobody calls me by my full name anymore. How do you know my name? She knelt down, right there on the dirty concrete, in her expensive coat. And when she looked at me, her eyes were Harold's eyes, green with gold flecks, just like his, just like mine. "My name is Serafina," she said, and her voice was shaking. "I've been looking for you for 27 years. 27 years? The math hit me like a truck. She would be 47 now. My first baby, my lost daughter, would be 47. "I don't understand," I whispered. But I did understand. God help me, I understood perfectly. "You gave birth to me on March 15th, 1978, St. Mary's Hospital. You were 20 years old." The words came out in a rush, like she'd rehearsed them 1,000 times. "You held me for 3 hours before you signed the papers." 3 hours. I remembered those 3 hours, the most beautiful and heartbreaking 3 hours of my life. "You sang to me," she continued, tears starting to fall. "You sang, 'You are my sunshine,' while the nurses prepared the adoption papers." I started sobbing, right there on those government steps, because she remembered. Somehow, impossibly, she remembered. "I hired investigators," Serafina said, pulling tissues from her purse. "It took years to find you, and when I did—" She paused, looking at the plastic bag beside me. "When I did, I found out my biological mother was living in poverty while her other children—" Her voice turned hard. "While her other children had abandoned her. You know about them?" "I know everything, Mom." Mom. She called me Mom. Nobody had called me Mom in months. "I know about Antonia taking your house. I know about Jonas bleeding you dry. I know about Claudine's cruel words." How could she know all that?
"I know because I've been watching, waiting for the right moment to approach you." "Watching me?" "Making sure you were the woman I hoped you were. Making sure you weren't like them." The way she said "them" made my blood run cold. "What do you mean?" Serafina stood up, brushing concrete dust off her coat. "I mean, I needed to know if you gave me away because you were selfish or because you loved me enough to give me a better life." She extended her hand to me. "And after watching how you sacrificed everything for those 3, after seeing how they repaid your love with legal documents." Her smile was sad but warm. "I have my answer." I took her hand. Her skin was soft, manicured. The hands of someone who'd never cleaned offices at midnight or worked double shifts at a diner. The hands of someone who'd gotten the better life I dreamed for her. "Come with me," she said. "Let me take you home." "I don't have a home." "You do now." She helped me to my feet, and for the first time in months, I felt steady, like someone actually wanted me around. But as we walked toward her car, this sleek black thing that looked like it cost more than my entire apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was too good to be true. "Serafina," I said, my voice small. "What do you do? For work, I mean." She smiled, but there was something mysterious in it. "I build things, Mom. I fix things that are broken." "What kind of things?" "Companies, lives, families." She opened the passenger door for me. "But mostly, I settle scores." The way she said it made my skin prickle. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, helping me into the car, "that people who hurt the ones I love don't get to keep hurting them." I settled into leather seats that were probably worth more than my rent. Serafina, I said, my voice small, what are you going to do about Antonia and Jonas and Claudine? She closed my door and walked around to the driver's side. When she got in, her expression was calm. Too calm. Nothing they don't deserve. But they're still my children. No, Mom. Her voice was gentle but firm. They stopped being your children the moment they signed those papers. She started the engine. Now they're just strangers who happen to share your DNA. As we drove away from the government building, I looked back at those concrete steps, at the place where I thought I was going to die. Where are we going? I asked. To my home, our home now. And where is that? Serafina's smile was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Somewhere your other children will never hurt you again. But that was only the beginning. Because what I didn't know was that Serafina's house wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. And my 3 children, my former children, were about to learn what happens when you abandon someone who has a billionaire daughter watching over her. The mansion gates opened like something out of a fairy tale. Black iron scrollwork, security cameras everywhere, and behind them, a house that looked like a palace. Serafina, I whispered, gripping the car door handle. What exactly do you do for a living? She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I told you, Mom, I fix things. The driveway curved through perfectly manicured gardens, fountains, marble statues, trees that looked like they were sculpted by artists. This is an $80 million home, she said casually, like she was commenting on the weather. $80 million! I'd never even seen $1 million. How did you... She parked in front of marble steps that led to doors the size of my entire apartment. Virtual reality fashion shows, luxury brands and digital spaces. People pay millions to dress their avatars in clothes that don't exist. I stared at her. My daughter, my baby girl who I gave away because I had nothing, had built an empire. The adoption agency placed me with the Blackwood family, tech moguls. They gave me every advantage. She helped me out of the car. Education, connections, capital to start my first business. A man in a crisp uniform appeared to take my plastic bag, my one plastic bag, being carried by a butler. The irony wasn't lost on me. But they never gave me what I needed most, Serafina continued, linking her arm through mine. What was that? A mother who chose me. The front doors opened before we reached them. A young woman with short auburn hair and sharp eyes stepped out. Evelyn, Serafina said, this is my mother. Evelyn's expression was polite but cold. Ma'am, she said with a slight nod. I could tell immediately she didn't trust me. Smart woman. If I were her, I wouldn't trust me either. Evelyn is my assistant, Serafina explained, as we walked into a foyer with ceilings 3 stories high. She handles everything. The way she said everything made me think Evelyn handled more than scheduling meetings. The staff has prepared the West Wing guest suite. Dinner will be served at 8. Thank you. Serafina turned to me. Would you like to rest? This has been a lot. I nodded, but I wasn't tired. I was overwhelmed and terrified because this felt too good to be true. And in my experience, when something feels too good to be true, it usually is. Evelyn led me down a hallway lined with paintings that probably cost more than most people's houses. Mrs. Ainsworth, she said quietly as we walked. Yes?
Serafina has been looking for you for a very long time. There was something in her tone. Maybe a warning? I know. What she hasn't told you is how much she's suffered. How many nights she cried herself to sleep wondering why her mother didn't want her. I stopped walking. I did want her. I gave her away because I loved her. Evelyn turned to face me. I know that, and deep down she knows that too. But abandonment leaves scars, Mrs. Ainsworth, even when it's done out of love. What are you trying to tell me? I'm trying to tell you that your daughter has spent 47 years building walls around her heart, and the only thing that's ever threatened to break them down, she paused, is you. She opened a door to reveal a suite bigger than my old apartment. Silk curtains, a 4-postered bed, a sitting area with a fireplace. Don't hurt her again, Evelyn said softly. Then she left me alone.
I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around at all this luxury, at this life I never could have given my daughter. And I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd made the right choice 47 years ago. Grateful that someone had loved her enough to give her all this. But also guilty. Guilty that I was enjoying it. Guilty that I felt safer in this mansion than I ever had in my own home. Guilty that part of me hoped I'd never have to leave. That's when my phone rang. An old flip phone, the only kind I could afford. I looked at the caller ID and my blood turned to ice. Antonia. Hello? Mom, where are you? Her voice was different, panicked. What do you mean? I went to your apartment. The landlord said you moved out. He said some woman in a fancy car picked you up. My heart started racing. How did you know about my apartment? I've been checking on you, Mom, making sure you are okay. Lies. She'd been checking on me to make sure I wasn't becoming her problem. I'm fine, Antonia. Who was the woman? What did she want? I could hear the fear in her voice now, and suddenly I understood. Antonia wasn't worried about me. She was worried about her inheritance. The inheritance she thought she'd secured by making me sign over the house. She's someone who cares about me, I said quietly. Mom, you're vulnerable right now. People prey on vulnerable old women. They make them think, Antonia. My voice was sharper than I'd ever used with her. Yes. Do you remember signing those papers 3 months ago? The ones that said you have no responsibility for me? Silence. Do you remember, Antonia? Mom, that was for legal protection in case... In case what? In case I became inconvenient? That's not what I... Then why didn't you answer your phone when I called you from those government steps? Why didn't you come get me when I had nowhere to go? More silence. I thought so. I hung up. And for the first time in months, I felt towerful. But that feeling didn't last long. Because 10 minutes later, Evelyn knocked on my door. Mrs. Ainsworth, there's someone at the gate claiming to be your son. Jonas. He's demanding to see you. He says he's calling the police if we don't let him in. I looked out the window, and I saw him. Standing outside those iron gates, screaming at the security cameras, looking desperate and angry and dangerous. What should I tell security?
Evelyn asked. I thought about it. About all the money I'd given him in the years. About all the times he'd made me choose between his needs and my medicine. About how he'd sign those papers without hesitation. Tell him, I said slowly, that I'm not his mother anymore. Evelyn smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd given me. Yes, ma'am. But as she left, I heard Jonas screaming louder. And I knew this was just the beginning. Because Jonas was desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. And then everything exploded. Because what I didn't know was that Jonas had brought backup. He'd brought Claudine. And together, they were about to turn my fairy tale into a nightmare.
The screaming got louder. I pressed my face to the window and saw them both now. Jonas pacing like a caged animal, Claudine pointing at the security cameras, her mouth moving in angry words I couldn't hear. Then I saw the third figure, Antonia. She'd arrived in a beaten-up Honda, jumping out before it even stopped moving. All three of my children, united for the first time in years, against me. Mrs. Answorth? Evelyn's voice was tight with concern. Serafina wants to see you in her office. I followed her down another marble hallway, past more priceless art, more luxury than I could comprehend. Serafina was sitting behind a desk the size of my old kitchen table. But she wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit sat across from her. Lawyer, definitely. Mom, please sit. Serafina's voice was calm, but her eyes were fire. What's happening? Your children, the lawyer said, opening a thick folder, have just filed an emergency petition with the court. My heart dropped. What kind of petition? They're claiming you've been kidnapped. The words hit me like a physical blow. Kidnapped? They've told a judge that a stranger manipulated you in your vulnerable state, that you're being held against your will by someone claiming to be your daughter. I stared at him. But I came here willingly. They don't care about the truth, Mom, Serafina said, her voice getting harder. They care about control. The lawyer continued. They've also filed for emergency guardianship. They claim you're mentally incompetent and need their protection. Mentally incompetent? The same children who legally disowned me 3 months ago now wanted to control me? There's more, Serafina said. Of course there was. They've contacted the media. Channel 7 News is on their way here. I felt the walls closing in. They're going to paint this as a story of predatory adoption. Rich woman preys on vulnerable elderly mother. But you have proof, I said desperately. The adoption papers, the birth certificate. We do, the lawyer nodded, but proof takes time to verify, and in the meantime, he slid a newspaper across the desk. Tomorrow's early edition. The headline made my stomach turn. Billionaire's adoption scam. Elderly woman vanishes into luxury compound. They've used my worst photo, the one from my driver's license renewal 2 years ago. I looked broken, desperate, exactly the kind of person who might fall for a scam. How did they get this published so fast? I whispered. Antonia used to work for a small newspaper. She still has connections.
The lawyer's phone buzzed. The news van just pulled up outside the gates. I stood up, my legs shaking. I have to go talk to them. I have to explain. Mom, no. Serafina stood too. That's exactly what they want. They want you looking confused and scared on camera. But people will think I've been kidnapped. Let them think it, Serafina said, and her voice was ice cold. For now. What do you mean? She walked to the window overlooking the front gates. I could see the news van, the reporter setting up, a small crowd gathering.
And my 3 children, standing there like concerned family members, playing their roles perfectly. I mean, Serafina said that sometimes you have to let people think they're winning before you destroy them completely. I don't understand. She turned to me, and for a moment, she looked exactly like Harold. That same determined expression when he was solving a problem. Mom, do you trust me? It was such a simple question, but the answer was complicated. I trusted my other children, and they destroyed me. I trusted Harold, and he died and left me alone. I'd trusted myself to make good decisions, and I'd ended up on concrete steps with a plastic bag. But looking at Serafina, looking at this woman who'd spent 27 years searching for me, who'd built an empire and used it to find her mother, who'd rescued me when no one else would. Yes, I said, I trust you. She smiled, and it was beautiful and terrifying. Good, because we're about to give them exactly what they want. What do they want? A show. She pressed a button on her desk. Send them in. Send who in? Your children. My blood ran cold. Serafina, no. They'll cause a scene. They'll say horrible things. I'm counting on it. The office door opened, and Antonia walked in first, followed by Jonas, then Claudine. For the first time in 3 months, all my children were in the same room as me. But instead of joy, I felt terror. Mom! Antonia rushed toward me, arms outstretched, like she actually cared. Thank God you're safe. We were so worried. The performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I'd believe she actually loved me. We've come to take you home, Jonas said, his voice gentle and concerned. So different from the screaming man at the gates. Claudine hung back, tears in her eyes. Mom, please, we're sorry. We made mistakes, but we love you. They were good. They were very good. But Serafina was better. Please, she said, gesturing to the chairs. Sit down. Let's talk about this like adults. Antonia's eyes narrowed as she looked around the office, taking in the expensive furniture, the original paintings on the walls, calculating net worth. So you're the one claiming to be our mother's daughter. I don't claim to be anything. I am her daughter, her first daughter. You have no proof of that. Serafina smiled and pulled out a file folder. Birth certificate, hospital records, adoption papers, DNA test results from 3 independent laboratories. She slid them across the desk.
Would you like to verify them? Antonia's face went white. Because if Serafina was telling the truth, if she really was my daughter, then everything changed. The inheritance they thought they'd secured, the house Antonia had taken, the money Jonas had borrowed and never repaid,
All of it suddenly had a new player, a player with more money than they had ever dreamed of. "Even if you are her daughter," Jonas said, his voice getting aggressive, "that doesn't give you the right to isolate her from her family." Isolate her? Serafina's voice was dangerously quiet. The way you isolated her when you had her legally disowned? The room went dead silent. The way you isolated her when you took her house and left her in a roach-infested apartment? Claudine started crying harder. "We made mistakes." "No," Serafina stood up. "You made choices." She walked to her desk and pressed another button. A large screen descended from the ceiling. "And now you're going to live with the consequences of those choices." The screen flickered to life. Security footage, dated 3 months ago. Antonia sitting across from a lawyer, sliding papers across a table. The audio was crystal clear. "I want complete legal separation from my mother. No financial responsibility, no caregiving obligations, nothing." The lawyer on screen asked, "Are you sure? This is permanent. Once you sign this, she cannot come to you for help of any kind." "I'm sure." Antonia's voice was cold. "She's not my problem anymore." The footage switched. Jonas at a bank closing out a joint account, taking every penny, leaving me with nothing. Another switch. Claudine at my old apartment building, telling the landlord she wouldn't be responsible for my rent. Let her figure it out herself. One more switch. All 3 of them at a family dinner I wasn't invited to. Laughing, toasting, celebrating their freedom from me. The screen went black. The office was so quiet you could hear hearts breaking. "So please," Serafina said, her voice like velvet over steel, "tell me more about how much you love your mother." Antonia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Jonas looked sick. Claudine had stopped crying. "Where did you get those?" Antonia whispered. "I told you. I fix things, and fixing things require information." "You had us followed?" "I had my mother protected. There's a difference." The lawyer cleared his throat. "I believe your children have something they'd like to say, but they didn't say anything. They just sat there, caught, exposed, destroyed." And for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. I felt proud. Proud of the daughter I'd raised for 3 hours and then given away. The daughter who'd become everything I dreamed she could be. The daughter who'd come back to save me. But the relief didn't last long, because Antonia wasn't done fighting. "You think you're so smart," she said, standing up. "You think your money makes you better than us?" "No," Serafina said calmly. "I think my character makes me better than you." "Character?" Antonia laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "You want to talk about character? Let me tell you what your precious mother did." My blood turned to ice because I knew what was coming. The one secret I'd never told anyone except Harold. The one thing that could destroy everything. She didn't just give you away because she was young and poor. She gave you away because she was ashamed of you. Serafina's face didn't change, but I saw her hands clench. "Shut up, Antonia," I whispered. "No, Mom. She needs to know the truth." Antonia turned to Serafina with a cruel smile. "Your father was married to someone else. Our precious mother was the other woman. The words hit the room like bombs. You weren't a child of love. You were a child of adultery, a mistake she wanted to erase. I watched Serafina's face, watched 27 years of searching and hoping and building walls around her heart crumble in real time. Is that true? She asked me, her voice barely a whisper. And I had to choose. Tell the truth and lose her forever, or lie and betray everything I'd taught her about honesty. I thought I'd hit rock bottom on those government steps. I was wrong. Because losing the daughter who'd saved me, after I'd just found her again, that was rock bottom.
The silence stretched like a knife blade. Serafina's eyes never left my face, waiting for an answer that would either save us or destroy us. Mom? Her voice was so small, so vulnerable, like the baby I'd held for 3 hours 47 years ago. I looked at Antonia, at the cruel satisfaction in her eyes, at Jonas and Claudine watching like vultures, waiting to see if their bomb would explode my new life. Yes, I whispered. Yes, what, Mom? Yes, your father was married. Serafina's face went white, but I wasn't finished. He was married to a woman who couldn't have children, a woman who prayed every night for a baby. I stood up, my voice getting stronger. He was married to a woman who would have loved you more than life itself if she'd known you existed. Antonia's smug expression faltered. His name was Michael Blackwood. Serafina's eyes widened. Your adopted father? The same man who adopted you was your biological father. He just never knew. The room exploded. What? Jonah stood up so fast his chair fell over. That's impossible, Antonia snarled. But Serafina was staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. How was that possible? I sank back into my chair. I was 20, working as a maid for the Blackwood family. Your father, Michael, he was kind to me. The memory was painful, but I forced myself to continue. His wife, Catherine, was going through her 5th miscarriage. She was broken, spent months in bed crying. So you seduced her husband, Claudine spat. No, my voice was sharp. He came to me. One night, when Catherine was at the hospital, he was drunk, devastated, lost. I looked at Serafina. It happened once, one night of grief and loneliness and stupid choices. And you got pregnant, she said quietly. I got pregnant, and I was terrified. If Catherine found out, it would destroy her. If Michael found out, I'd lose my job, my reputation, everything. So you ran, like a coward, Antonia said. I quit my job and disappeared, moved across the country, had you in secret. Serafina's hands were shaking. When I signed the adoption papers, I specifically requested the agency never revealed the father's name. I said he was a stranger,
a one-night stand with someone I'd never see again. But the Blackwoods adopted through that same agency, she said, the pieces falling into place. 3 months after you were born, Catherine had just had her 6th miscarriage. They were desperate for a child. The room was dead silent. So Michael raised his own daughter without knowing she was his. And Catherine got the baby she prayed for. Serafina stood up abruptly and walked to the window, her back to all of us. Did he ever suspect? No. You look like Catherine when you were little. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes. As you got older, you looked more like him, but... I shrugged. People see what they want to see, and they wanted to see their miracle baby. This is insane, Jonas muttered, but Antonia was calculating again. I could see the wheels turning in her head. If Serafina is a Blackwood by blood,
Then she inherited legitimately, the lawyer said quietly, not just as an adopted child, but as a biological heir. Antonia's face went purple. Because suddenly, Serafina wasn't just rich, she was rightfully rich. And Antonia's whole narrative about the other woman's bastard child had backfired spectacularly. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Serafina asked, still facing the window. "Because I was ashamed. Not of you, but of myself. I was ashamed that I'd been weak, that I'd made a choice that could have destroyed a good woman, that I'd given away my baby not just because I was poor, but because I was a coward." She turned around, and there were tears in her eyes. "Do you regret it?" It was the question I'd been dreading for 47 years. I regret the circumstances. I regret the pain it caused. I regret not being brave enough to find another way. I reached for her hand. But I don't regret that you ended up with Michael and Catherine. They loved you. They gave you everything I couldn't, even if it was all built on a lie. Even then. She squeezed my hand. Because love doesn't become less real when the foundation is complicated. Antonia made a disgusted noise. "This is all very touching, but it doesn't change anything. You still abandon your family for a stranger." "She abandoned us for a daughter," Jonas corrected angrily. "A daughter who's rich. A daughter who actually loves her," Claudine added, and there was real venom in her voice now. All pretense of caring about me was gone. They were showing their true faces. "You know what I think?" Antonia stood up, pacing like a predator. "I think this whole thing is still a scam." "Excuse me?" Serafina's voice was dangerous. "I think you found out about my mother's financial situation and saw an opportunity. I think you're playing a long game." The lawyer started to object, but Antonia kept going. "Lonely old woman, estranged from her family, perfect victim for an inheritance scam." "An inheritance scam?" Serafina laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "What inheritance? Your mother was living in poverty when I found her." "Exactly. That's what makes it so perfect." Antonia was getting more aggressive, more desperate. "You swoop in, play the long-lost daughter, gain her trust, then what? Get her to sign over what little she has? Get her to change her will?" "Antonia, stop," I said. "No, Mom, can't you see what's happening? She's manipulating you." "The way you manipulated me into signing over the house?" That shut her up for about 3 seconds. That was different. That was for your own protection. Protection from what? From making bad decisions? From being taken advantage of? The irony was thick you could cut it with a knife. Like the bad decision of trusting my own children? Jonas stepped forward. Mom, come home with us, please. We can work this out. We can be a family again. Now you want to be a family? My voice was getting louder. Now that you think there might be money involved? That's not... Yes, it is. I was shouting now. You didn't want me when you thought I was worthless, but now that I'm living in a mansion, suddenly I'm family again? We made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices, calculated, deliberate, legal choices. Mom, please. You had me legally disowned. You took my house. You left me on government steps to die. Claudine started crying again. We didn't know you were homeless. You knew exactly where I was. You checked on me to make sure I wasn't becoming your problem. The truth was ugly, but it was out now. All of it. You want to know the real difference between Serafina and you three? I asked. They stared at me. She spent 27 years looking for me. You spent 3 months trying to get rid of me. That's not fair, Jonas said weakly. Fair? I laughed, but it came out as a sob. You want to talk about fair? I walked over to the desk and picked up the legal documents, the ones that said I wasn't their responsibility. Is it fair that I worked 2 jobs for 15 years to put you through school? I threw the papers at Jonas. Is it fair that I chose your medicine over mine when money was tight? More papers at Claudine. Is it fair that I gave you my house, my security, my future, and you repaid me with abandonment? The last of the papers at Antonia. You want fair? Here's fair. You get exactly what you gave me, nothing. The room was silent, except for my heavy breathing. But Antonia wasn't done. She never knew when to quit. Fine, she said, her voice cold and sharp. You want to play it that way? We'll play it that way. She pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Calling Channel 7. They're still outside, waiting for the story. My blood ran cold. I'm going to tell them everything. The affair, the lies, the adoption fraud. There was no fraud, wasn't there? You lied to the adoption agency. You concealed the father's identity. You manipulated the system. She was dialing now. I'm going to tell them how you abandoned your baby, and then your other 3 children, how you chose money over family. Serafina stepped forward. Hang up the phone. Or what? Hang up the phone, Antonia. Her voice was perfectly calm, which was somehow more terrifying than if she'd been screaming. You don't scare me, Antonia said. But she was lying. We could all see she was lying. You should be scared, Evelyn said quietly from the doorway. None of us had heard her come in. You should be very, very scared. She was holding a tablet, because while you've been in here making threats, we've been making phone calls. She handed the tablet to Serafina. Show them, Serafina said. Evelyn tapped the screen. Bank records appeared. Jonas, your mortgage is 3 months behind. He went white. Antonia, your business loan is in default. She stopped dialing. Claudine,
Your car is about to be repossessed. Claudine's crying stopped. Now, here's what's interesting. All of your loans are through subsidiaries of companies that my boss owns. The silence was deafening. Which means, Serafina said softly, I own your mortgages. I own your business loans. I own your car notes. She smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. I own you. Antonia's phone clattered to the floor. That's impossible. I told you, Serafina said. I fix things. And sometimes fixing things means buying the broken pieces. She walked over to where they stood. 3 grown adults suddenly looking like scared children. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this house. You're going to stop harassing my mother. You're going to withdraw your legal petitions. And if we don't, Jonas asked weakly, if you don't, I will call in every single loan, foreclose on every single property, repossess every single asset. She was standing right in front of them now. I will destroy you so completely that bankruptcy will look like mercy. You can't do that, Claudine whispered. I can, and I will, and I'll sleep like a baby afterward. She turned to me. Mom, do you have anything you'd like to say to them? I looked at my 3 children, at the people I'd given my life to, at the ones who'd thrown me away like garbage, and I felt empty. Not angry anymore, not hurt anymore, just empty. I forgive you, I said quietly. They looked surprised. But I'll never trust you again, and I'll never let you hurt me again. I walked over to where Serafina stood. I choose her. I choose the daughter who chose me. Antonia's face crumpled. Mom, please. No, my voice was firm. You made your choice 3 months ago. Now I'm making mine. Security appeared in the doorway. Evelyn must have called them. Escort them off the property, Serafina said, and make sure they understand they're not welcome back. As they were led away, Antonia turned back one more time. This isn't over. Yes, Serafina said, it is. The door closed behind them, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. But even as I felt relief washing over me, I knew Antonia was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Because desperate people with nothing left to lose, they don't just disappear quietly. They explode. And I had the terrible feeling that the worst was yet to come. I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I was wrong. Because what they did next, what they were willing to destroy to hurt me, that showed me what true evil looked like. And it was wearing the faces of my own children. They waited exactly 48 hours. Just long enough for me to think it was over. Just long enough for me to start feeling safe. I was in the garden with Serafina, having tea like normal people do, like mothers and daughters do, talking about small things, favorite colors, childhood memories she had with Catherine. It was peaceful. Perfect. That should have been my first warning, because in my life, perfect never lasts. Mrs. Ainsworth, Evelyn came running across the garden, her usually perfect hair flying loose. "There's a problem, a big problem." Serafina was on her feet instantly. "What kind of problem?" "Turn on Channel 7, now." We rushed inside to the main living room. Serafina grabbed the remote and clicked to the news. And there was my face, filling the entire screen. But not just any photo, the worst photo possible. Me at 20 years old, pregnant, walking out of the Blackwood estate. Someone had taken it from a distance, but you could see everything. The shame on my face, the baby bump, the staff entrance I was sneaking out of. The headline underneath made my knees buckle. "Billionaire's dirty secret. Love child scandal rocks Fortune 500 empire." "How did they get that photo?" I whispered. But I already knew. Only one person could have taken it. Catherine's sister, Meredith. She'd always hated me, always suspected something. She must have followed me that day I left, kept the photo all these years, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. The reporter's voice was crisp and professional. Sources close to the family confirmed that Serafina Blackwood's adoption was facilitated by her biological mother, who was employed as domestic help and allegedly engaged in an inappropriate relationship with the late Michael Blackwood. "Sources close to the family," Serafina repeated quietly. "Who do you think those sources are?" My phone started ringing. Then Serafina's phone. Then Evelyn's phone. All at once, like a symphony of destruction. "Don't answer," Serafina said. But the house phone started ringing too. And then someone was pounding on the front door. "Mrs. Ainsworth! Mrs. Ainsworth! Channel 9 News! We'd like to ask you a few questions." More pounding. "Serafina Blackwood, care to comment on allegations of adoption fraud?" Evelyn was on her tablet, scrolling frantically. "It's everywhere. Every major news outlet. Social media is exploding." She showed us the screen. Hundreds of comments. Thousands. "Gold digger whore finally got her payday. Poor billionaire girl finding out she's a bastard. Rich people problems, who cares?" But the worst ones were about me. "Old lady probably planned this from the beginning. 47 years to cash in on her mistake. Should have kept her legs closed." I felt like I was drowning. "Turn it off," I whispered. But Serafina was reading every comment, her face getting harder with each one. "Ma'am," one of the security guards appeared. "There are about 30 reporters outside the gates now, and..." He hesitated. "And what?" "Your other children are giving interviews." The blood drained from my face. "Put it on the main screen." "Serafina, no! I need to see this." The wall-mounted TV flickered to life, and there was Antonia, standing in front of our old house, the house she'd stolen from me, crying perfect tears for the camera. "My mother disappeared 3 days ago," she was saying. "We're worried sick about her mental state." The reporter leaned in sympathetically. "You believe she's being manipulated?" "I know she is." Antonia wiped her eyes. "This woman, this so-called daughter, she's preying on my mother's guilt about giving up a baby decades ago." She looked directly into the camera. "My mother has early-stage dementia. She's confused, vulnerable, easily manipulated." Dementia? She was claiming I had dementia? "That's a lie," I breathed. "We know, Mom." But the interview continued. "We just want our mother back,"
Jonas said, appearing beside Antonia. "We love her. We've always taken care of her." Lies. All lies. If this Serafina person really cared about our mother, she'd bring her home to her real family. The reporter nodded sympathetically. "Have you tried to contact your mother?" "She won't take our calls," Claudine said, joining them. "This woman has isolated her completely. Classic elder abuse." Elder abuse? They were accusing Serafina of elder abuse. "We're considering legal action," Antonia added, "both criminal and civil. Our mother's rights are being violated." The camera switched back to the news desk. "We reached out to Serafina Blackwood's representatives for comment, but have not received a response. We'll continue following this developing story." The screen went black. The room was dead silent. Then Serafina started laughing. Not happy laughter, cold, dangerous laughter. "They have no idea what they've just done. Serafina, they think they can lie about you on national television? They think they can claim you have dementia? They think they can accuse me of elder abuse?" She was pacing now, like a caged tiger. "They just made this personal." "It was already personal," I said. "No, Mom. Before, this was about money, about inheritance, about family drama." She stopped pacing and looked at me. "Now it's about war." The front door chimed. Evelyn appeared again. "Ma'am, there's someone here to see you. Says she has information about the photo." "What kind of information?" "She says she knows who really took it and why." A woman in her 70s walked into the room. Elegant, expensive clothes, cold eyes. I knew that face. Even though she was older, grayer, more lined with age, I knew those eyes.
"Hello, Maribel." My blood turned to ice. Meredith, Catherine's sister. The woman who'd hated me for 47 years. "Surprised to see me? What do you want?" "I want to tell your daughter the truth about what really happened." Serafina stepped forward. "What truth?" Meredith smiled, and it was like looking at a snake. "The truth about why your mother really left. The truth about what she did to my sister." I told her everything. "Did you?" Meredith's voice was sharp. "Did you tell her about the suicide attempt?" The room went silent. "What suicide attempt?" Serafina asked quietly. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the nearest chair, because the worst secret of all was about to come out, the one I'd never told anyone, not even Harold. "Your mother didn't just break up a marriage," Meredith said, her voice drooping with venom. "She destroyed my sister completely." "That's not true. Catherine found out about the affair and about the pregnancy." Serafina's face went white. "She knew?" "She knew everything. Michael told her in a moment of guilt, right before you were born." The world was spinning. Catherine came to me, sobbing, broken, said she wanted to kill herself rather than live with the betrayal. "Stop," I whispered. "She took a bottle of pills that night. If I hadn't found her..." Meredith looked directly at Serafina. "Your mother almost killed the woman who raised you." The silence stretched like a death sentence. Serafina's voice was barely a whisper. "Is that true?" I looked at my daughter. My beautiful, successful, powerful daughter. and I told her the truth that I'd buried for 47 years. Yes. The word fell like a stone into water. Catherine tried to kill herself because of me, because of what I'd done. Serafina staggered backward. But she survived. And you know what she did after she survived? My voice was getting stronger. Even though my heart was breaking, she forgave me. Meredith's smug expression faltered. She called me into the hospital room, took my hand, and said she understood. I stood up, facing my daughter. She said grief makes people do desperate things, that she'd seen how Michael was falling apart after her miscarriages, that she knew he needed comfort. That's not, Meredith started. She asked me to give her the baby, not through an agency, directly to her. Serafina's eyes widened. She wanted to raise you herself, knowing exactly who you were? My sister would never. Your sister was a saint, I said, turning to Meredith. She was better than both of us, better than Michael, better than me. I look back at Serafina. She loved you from the moment she held you, not because she didn't know the truth, but because she did know and chose love anyway. Tears were streaming down Serafina's face. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was afraid you'd hate me for almost killing the woman who became your mother. And I was afraid you'd think I was a monster. The room was silent, except for the sound of hearts breaking and healing at the same time. Then Serafina did something I never expected. She walked over to Meredith. Thank you for bringing me that photo. I didn't bring it for you. I know exactly why you brought it. To destroy my mother, to ruin our reunion. She was standing very close to Meredith now. But you've given me something much more valuable. What? The truth about Catherine. About how much she truly loved me. Serafina's voice was getting harder. And the knowledge that you've been holding on to hate for 47 years, while my mother has been holding on to guilt. I loved my sister. No, you loved your anger. There's a difference. She pointed to the door. Security will escort you out. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. This is my house, my mother, my choice. As Meredith was led away, she called back venomously. This won't end here. The media won't let this go. Good, Serafina said calmly. Let them dig. Let them investigate. Let them find out exactly who abandoned who. The door closed, and suddenly it was just the two of us, mother and daughter, standing in the wreckage of 47 years of secrets. So what now? I asked. Serafina wiped her eyes and looked at me. Now we show them what real family looks like. She walked to her desk and picked up the phone. Evelyn, call the lawyers, all of them. What are you doing? She covered the phone. I'm going to hold a press conference tomorrow morning on the front steps of this house. Serafina, no, the media will tear us apart. Let them try. Her smile was fierce and beautiful. I've been hiding in boardrooms and behind lawyers my whole life, but this time is different. Why? Because this time I'm not protecting a business deal or a stock price. She squeezed my hand. This time I'm protecting my mother. And that's when I knew.
This wasn't just about money anymore. This wasn't just about inheritance or houses or legal documents. This was about love. Real love. The kind of love that fights back. The kind of love that stands up to bullies and liars and heartless children. The kind of love I'd never had the courage to fight for until now.
The press conference was something else. 50 reporters, cameras everywhere. The entire front lawn of the mansion turned into a media circus. I stood beside Serafina on those marble steps, the same kind of steps where I'd been abandoned 3 months ago. But this time, I wasn't alone. This time, I had someone who chose to stand with me. Serafina spoke first. Her voice was calm, professional, powerful. My name is Serafina Blackwood. 3 days ago, I was reunited with my biological mother after 27 years of searching. The cameras clicked like hungry insects. Today, I want to set the record straight about what happened and what's happening now. She pulled out a folder. These are the legal documents my mother's other children filed 3 months ago, legally disowning her and removing all caregiving responsibility. She held up each page for the cameras. This is the eviction notice they allowed to be served on her apartment. More papers. These are the bank records showing they drained her joint accounts. The reporters were scribbling furiously. And this, she held up one final document. This is the will they tried to get her to sign while she lived in poverty. A reporter shouted out, "What's your response to their claims of elder abuse?" Serafina smiled. That beautiful, terrible smile. My response is this. The only elder abuse happening here was committed by the children who abandoned their mother on government steps with nothing but a plastic bag. She gestured to me. My mother would like to say something. The microphones turned toward me. 50 strangers waiting to hear my story. I thought about all the times I'd stayed silent, all the times I'd let people hurt me without fighting back, all the times I'd made myself small to make others comfortable. Not today. My name is Maribel Ainsworth, said I, my voice stronger than I expected. 47 years ago, I gave birth to a daughter and made the hardest decision of my life. I gave her to a family who could love her the way she deserved. The crowd was silent. For the past 11 years, I worked 2 jobs to support my 3 other children. I gave them my house, my savings, my health, my entire life. My voice started to shake, but not with fear, with anger. 3 months ago, when I needed them most, they had me legally disowned. They took everything and left me with nothing. A reporter called out, "Do you forgive them?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. I forgive the children I raised, the ones who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the ones who called me mama and meant it. I paused. But those children don't exist anymore. They were replaced by strangers who happen to share my DNA. What about reconciliation? Another reporter asked. You can't reconcile with people who never loved you in the first place. The questions kept coming, but I stopped listening because I saw them. Antonia, Jonas, and Claudine standing at the back of the crowd, watching their narrative crumble in real time, watching the mother they had discarded stand tall and tell the truth. Antonia was crying, but not the fake tears from her interviews. Real tears, because she finally understood what she'd lost. Not money, not inheritance, but the woman who would have died for her, who had died for her, piece by piece, year after year. The press conference ended. The reporters dispersed. But my 3 children stayed, standing there like ghosts. Finally, Antonia walked forward. "Mom?" Her voice was small, broken. Can we talk?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the little girl who used to help me fold laundry, who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers, who used to say, "I love you, Mama," every night before bed. "What would you like to say?" "I'm sorry." 2 words. 47 years too late. "I know," I said gently. "Can you forgive us?" I thought about Catherine, about how she'd forgiven me for almost destroying her life, about how love chooses grace over grudges. I already have. Hope flickered in Antonia's eyes. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, and it doesn't mean forgetting. The hope died. You made your choice, Antonia. All of you did. You chose money over love, comfort over character. We can change. Maybe you can. I hope you do, for your own sake. I took Serafina's hand, but I won't be around to watch. Where will you go? I looked up at the mansion behind me, at the daughter who'd spent a fortune to find me, at the home where I was wanted, valued, loved. I'm already home. Jonas stepped forward. "Mom, please, we need you." "No," I said quietly. "You need my forgiveness so you can sleep at night. You need to feel like good people again." I shook my head. "But you don't need me. You proved that 3 months ago." One by one, they walked away. Antonia last, looking back over her shoulder like she wanted to say something else. But there was nothing left to say. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Now it's been 6 months. 6 months of living in a home where I'm valued, where I'm wanted, where someone actually listens when I speak. Serafina and I have dinner together every night. We talk about everything and nothing. She tells me about her business deals. I tell her about her father. Not Michael, but Harold, the man who raised Antonia, Jonas, and Claudine. The man who would have loved Serafina, too, if he'd known about her. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with wonder, like she can't believe I'm real, like she's afraid I'll disappear. I understand that fear. For 47 years, I thought I'd lost her forever. The 3 children I raised, they still call sometimes. I don't answer. Evelyn screens the calls. They've stopped the legal challenges, stopped the media interviews. I think they finally understand they lost more than money when they abandoned me. They lost the woman who would have loved them unconditionally for the rest of their lives. But I've learned something important in these 6 months. Love isn't about blood. It's not about who raised you or who gave birth to you. Love is about choice. Every single day, you choose to show up for the people who matter. You choose to fight for them. You choose to protect them. You choose to value them. My 3 children chose convenience over care. Serafina chose love over logic. She chose to search for a mother she'd never known. She chose to rescue a woman she had every right to resent. She chose to call me family when family had abandoned me. That's the difference between being related to someone and being family with someone.
Family is a verb, not a noun. It's something you do, not something you are. And at 67 years old, I finally learned what real family feels like. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty for turning my back on the children I raised, for choosing the daughter I gave away, for living in luxury while they struggle with the consequences of their choices. But then I remember those concrete steps. I remember that plastic bag. I remember the legal papers that said I was nobody's mother. And I remember that love should never be a one-way street. Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Choice does. Showing up does. And if you're not willing to do those things, then you don't get to call yourself family. So I have to ask you something. After everything I've told you, after everything they did, after everything she saved me from, should I feel guilty for turning my back on the 3 children I've raised, even if they abandoned me first? Or was it justice that the daughter I once gave away is now the only one who truly calls me mother? What would you have done?